All right, picture this. It's a frigid Maine winter, 1789. Secrets are hidden under the ice. And a determined midwife is the only one who can unravel this chilling murder mystery.
Sounds pretty intriguing, right?
It does. And that's the world you'll enter when you pick up Ariel Lawhon's The Frozen River.
That's right.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into this historical fiction novel
Or just actually.
inspired by the real diaries of midwife Martha Ballard.
Yes. So if you're like many of our listeners and you love a good mystery, mixed with history,
Special.
especially stories with strong female characters who are facing injustice,
Oh, for sure.
you're going to want to stick around because today we're going to break down
Yes.
all the strengths and weaknesses of the novel, The Frozen River. And by the end,
Yes.
you'll know for sure if this book deserves a spot on your reading list.
Okay, I love that. That sounds really promising. But I'm sure there are some listeners out there thinking, hold on, another historical fiction novel with a strong female lead. Is this one really special? Like, what sets The Frozen River apart?
So one of the things that really struck me right away about this book was Lawhon's talent for creating a truly immersive experience through her writing.
Oh, interesting.
Like, for example, just take the opening scene
Okay.
where Martha is called out in the middle of winter to attend a birth,
Oh, wow.
a very difficult birth. And Lawhon's descriptions of like the biting wind and the crunch of the snow underfoot, the flickering candlelight in the birthing room, it really transports you back to 18th century Maine. You can practically feel the chill in the air.
I love that about historical fiction. It's like my favorite thing is being transported to a different time and place.
Absolutely.
I have to say, though, I've seen some mixed reviews online. Some readers, like I saw one Goodreads review, her name was Helga,
Yeah.
and she criticized Lawhon's writing as lazy and immature. What would you say to that?
Well, it's important to remember that reading is subjective.
Oh, totally.
And what one person might find captivating, another person might find, just not for them.
Sure.
And while some people, I think, perceive all these details, and she does use a lot of details, as slowing down the pace,
Uh-huh.
I actually see it as Lawhon really meticulously building this world and atmosphere.
Okay.
Almost like an 18th century Dutch painter might layer oil paints to create depth and texture.
Oh, interesting.
You're not just reading the story,
Yeah.
you're experiencing it with all of Martha's senses.
I see your point. Yeah, it's like the difference between skimming a summary versus really savoring a richly detailed account.
Exactly.
But I did see some other reviewers like Wendy Darling, and she did mention that while the beginning was so immersive,
Yeah.
she thought that it kind of lost a little steam as it progressed.
Yeah, that's a fair observation. I think the initial mystery
Right.
definitely grabs you. But I agree the pacing does become a bit uneven as the story unfolds. And Lawhon does focus a lot on Martha's everyday life as a midwife, which, while it is fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
it might not necessarily hold the same level of suspense for all readers, especially those who are really looking for a fast-paced thriller.
So more of a slow burn, character-driven kind of mystery.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, besides the writing style, I think it's important to really look at the content and themes
Okay.
because The Frozen River isn't just a murder mystery.
Yeah.
It's really this glimpse into a world we don't see that often in fiction.
Uh-huh.
The world of 18th century midwifery.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, the synopsis mentions that the whole story is inspired by real-life diaries of Martha Ballard. And the casual review that I read really highlighted how the novel portrays Martha as a really strong, progressive woman, especially for her time.
Oh, absolutely. Lawhon uses details from Martha's actual diary entries to paint this picture of her role in the community. And I mean, think about it. She was delivering babies in the worst possible conditions,
Right.
tending to the sick, navigating all these social hierarchies, and even dealing with legal matters.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Martha was more than just a midwife. She was a healer, she was a confidant, and she ends up as, we find out, this unexpected investigator.
That's cool how Lawhon really intertwines that murder mystery with her actual work as a midwife. It's not just like a backdrop. It's like a key part of the whole thing.
Exactly. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
the way Martha uses her knowledge of herbs and her understanding of the human body to find clues is brilliant.
Oh, wow.
It's like this subtle reminder of the power of observation
Yeah.
and the importance of women's knowledge,
Right.
which, at the time was often overlooked.
Yeah, especially since they were usually excluded from formal medical training and things like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm really starting to see why so many reviewers found Martha such a compelling character.
Oh, yeah.
She's a woman ahead of her time, defying expectations, taking charge in this world that's dominated by men.
And that defiance is especially evident in how Lahan portrays her marriage
Okay.
to Ephraim. He's portrayed as this supportive partner,
Really?
which, as you can imagine, raised some eyebrows on Goodreads.
I was going to say, that does seem a little out of character for the time period, a supportive husband.
Yeah. Reviewers, like I saw one named Bianca, questioned the historical accuracy of Ephraim's character.
Oh, okay.
But I think if you look at it from a different angle, it's actually challenging our assumptions of what those relationships were like back then. Lahan does acknowledge in her author's note that she took some creative liberties in crafting Ephraim's character, but I think she was drawing inspiration from, maybe more progressive relationships that could have existed, even if they weren't the norm.
Right. So she's not necessarily trying to rewrite history, but she's exploring different possibilities within that historical context.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that makes The Frozen River really thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It encourages us to kind of question what we think we know about the past and consider that there might have been more diversity, more, differences in thought and experience than traditional historical accounts reveal.
Well, that's such a good point. It's like history is not just facts.
Right.
It's all these human stories, and some of them get lost.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big theme in this novel, which is, rape and justice. Or rather, I should say, the lack of justice.
Right.
Because the crime that Martha investigates really highlights the reality women faced in the 18th century.
Oh, yeah.
And all the challenges they had when seeking justice.
Yeah, the Keep It Casual review that I was looking at mentioned that part of the story is particularly powerful and relevant even today.
Absolutely. Lahan doesn't shy away from depicting what sexual assault was like for women, how they were often silenced and disbelieved.
Right.
However, I did see that some reviewers, like Wendy Darling, pointed out that while the book addresses women's rights, it doesn't go super deep into the emotional impact of the trauma on the victims.
Okay, I can see how that could be a drawback for some readers, especially if they're really looking for that deep exploration of those emotions.
Right. Lahan's focus is really on the mystery and Martha's role in solving it.
All right, so we've got this really compelling mystery, a strong female lead, this look into this really interesting historical period.
Right.
But what about the whole reading experience in general?
Yeah.
Like, how does The Frozen River compare to other historical fiction novels?
Well, if you're looking for a direct comparison, I would say The Midwife's Tale by Laurel Thatcher Ulrichs is something you should check out.
Okay.
It's nonfiction, but it dives into Martha Ballard's actual diaries.
Oh, wow.
So it gives you the background to Lahan's fictionalized version.
It's like a companion piece.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Now, if you really like historical fiction that mixes mystery and social commentary, I would recommend The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna.
Yeah.
It's set during World War II and follows two sisters in Nazi-occupied France.
Cool.
It's about resilience and courage.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking for something that feels similar to The Frozen River, but maybe a different time period, I would say The Physician's Daughter by Martha Conway, and that's Victorian England. And it follows a young woman who disguises herself as a man so she can become a doctor.
Oh, wow.
It's a story about ambition, societal constraints, and fighting for equality.
Oh, I love that. That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sensing a common theme here, right? These stories of women who are defying expectations, challenging those societal norms.
And I think that's what makes these books so compelling. It's not just entertainment.
Yeah.
It's a glimpse into the struggles and triumphs of women throughout history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, going back to The Frozen River, I think some listeners might still be a little hesitant. They might be thinking, okay, I've read a lot of historical fiction. What makes this one really stand out?
I think it's how Lahan takes Martha's job as a midwife and makes it part of the mystery. The book isn't just about solving the crime. It's about understanding this woman's life.
Yeah.
And she had this vital position in her community.
Right.
But she was often overlooked and definitely undervalued.
Right.
And through Martha's eyes, we see childbirth, early medicine, all the social dynamics of a small town.
Yeah. That's so interesting. It's like a window into a world that we don't really see explored in detail that often.
Exactly. And that's what makes The Frozen River so compelling.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, it's historical drama, it's a character study all in one.
Oh, I love that.
And it's a book that I think will stick with you long after you finish it.
That's awesome. I'm starting to see why this book is really hitting home with readers.
Yeah.
It's not just about the mystery. It's really about Martha and her journey as a woman navigating this world that's really trying to hold her back.
Yeah.
But speaking of challenges,
Yeah.
I do remember seeing some reviewers who mentioned some historical inaccuracies or anachronisms in the book.
Yeah.
Did that bother you at all?
Yeah, there were a few reviewers, especially those who are really sticklers for historical accuracy, who took issue with certain terms or concepts that felt a little out of place for the 18th century. Like, one example that comes to mind is the use of the term vernix,
Okay.
which, as one reviewer, Bianca, pointed out, didn't actually appear until much later.
Interesting.
But I think for me personally, I tend to view these instances more as creative choices
Okay.
rather than like huge glaring errors.
Right.
Because historical fiction is always going to be this blend of
Right.
fact and imagination.
I guess it depends on what you're looking for as a reader.
Exactly.
Like if you want pure facts, stick to nonfiction.
Exactly.
But if you like how fiction can sort of illuminate the past
Right.
while still taking those creative liberties, then maybe those little anachronisms aren't such a big deal.
Exactly. And remember, Lahan does acknowledge in
Right.
her author's note that she's blending fact and fiction to bring Martha's story to life. It's not meant to be a strictly factual historical account.
Okay.
It's more of a reimagining
Yeah.
of this remarkable woman's life based on her diaries.
Which is still really cool. Speaking of Martha, I am really curious to hear a little bit more about what makes her such a captivating character. I mean, we've talked about her strength, her defiance,
Right.
but are there any specific examples from the book
Yeah.
that really highlight those qualities?
So one that really sticks out in my mind is when Martha confronts a group of men who are spreading rumors about the victim of the crime.
Oh, wow.
And she doesn't hesitate to speak her mind,
Good for her.
even when she's facing opposition from, men in positions of power.
Right.
And in another scene, she challenges the local doctor's diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Based on her own knowledge and experience, she's really advocating for her patients.
See, that's what I find so inspiring about her.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in, even when society is telling her to be quiet.
Yeah, and it's not just her actions.
Yeah.
It's her inner thoughts as well. Lahan gives us access to Martha's thought process.
Okay.
And you can really tell she's intelligent, resourceful, and deeply caring.
But I did see some reviewers, Jeannie on Goodreads for one, who found her to be unlikable
Yeah.
and preachy.
Right.
How do you reconcile that with, like, so many other people finding her character really amazing?
I think it's important to remember that with any strong character, you're going to have people who love them and
Well,
people who don't. Martha is definitely not your typical, super likable protagonist.
Yeah.
She can be stubborn, she can be judgmental, even a bit self-righteous at
Yeah.
times. But, I think that's what makes her human.
Yeah.
That's what makes her relatable. She's not perfect, she's flawed. And I think that's what makes her journey of
Yeah.
growth and self-discovery so compelling.
Yeah, that is what makes historical fiction so interesting. You're really stepping into the shoes of people who lived in such a different world
Right.
with completely different values and beliefs.
Yeah.
It really makes you look at your own biases
Absolutely.
and how you view things.
And in the case of the frozen river, it also makes us think about the impact of women like Martha Ballard.
Yeah.
Her diaries have given us these incredible insights into what life was like back then.
Right.
But it's not just about that. It's about recognizing that women had agency.
Yes.
They had resilience,
Absolutely.
even when they were often pushed to the margins.
Totally. It
Yeah.
really makes you wonder what stories from our own time are being overlooked or
Right.
forgotten. What voices are we not hearing?
Yeah, that's a deep question.
It is.
And in this day and age, it's easy to get caught up in the constant stream of news and information.
Oh, for sure.
But it's important to remember that everyone has a story,
Right.
and every perspective is valuable.
Absolutely.
And just like Martha Ballard's diaries shed light on a bygone era, our own stories, no matter how ordinary they might seem,
Yeah.
are adding to this tapestry of human experience.
It's kind of a powerful reminder that history isn't just some distant thing we read about in textbooks.
Right.
We're creating it
Exactly. Every single day.
with our actions and choices.
Through our stories.
Yeah, speaking of stories,
Yeah.
I know a lot of our listeners are always looking for good book recommendations.
Yeah.
So for those who are maybe intrigued by the frozen river but want to see some similar themes or time periods, What would you suggest?
Well, if you're interested in Martha Ballard specifically,
Yeah.
The Midwife's Tale by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich is essential reading. As I mentioned before, it's nonfiction, but it delves into her actual diaries.
Right.
It's perfect for those interested in women's health and the lives of everyday people back then.
Yeah, okay. Definitely going on my reading list.
Awesome. Now, if you're more drawn to the murder mystery aspect, I would recommend The Alienist by Caleb Carr.
Right.
It's set in 1896 New York City.
Oh, cool.
And follows a criminal psychologist and a newspaper illustrator
Yeah.
who are investigating a series of murders.
Okay. That sounds really good.
It's a page-turner
Awesome.
with a cool historical backdrop.
I've heard great things about that one. That one's been on my list. Now, what about people who really love being immersed in historical fiction,
Yeah.
but maybe they want a different time period
Right.
or setting?
Well, if you're interested in Tudor England,
Okay.
I cannot recommend The Other Boleyn Girl enough
Okay.
by Philippa Gregory.
Cool.
It's a great story about intrigue, ambition, betrayal,
Yeah.
all centered around Anne Boleyn and her sister Mary.
Oh, cool.
Philippa Gregory is fantastic at historical fiction,
Right.
and this is one of her best.
Awesome. I love how she brings those historical figures to life.
Yes,
They feel so real.
exactly. And if you're interested in the American West and the pioneer experience, okay.
These Is My Words by Nancy E. Turner is an unforgettable read.
Okay.
It's a fictionalized autobiography of a woman named Sarah Agnes Prine,
Okay.
and she travels west with her family
That?
in the late 1800s.
Oh, cool.
It's a story about resilience, hardship, the strength of the human spirit.
That sounds amazing. Adding that to my list right now. You've given us so much to think about.
I know, right?
And I'm sure listeners are like building their reading lists right now.
Totally.
But before we totally wrap up our deep dive into the frozen river,
Yeah.
let's go back to that thought-provoking question that we were discussing earlier
Yeah.
about our own lives becoming these historical records.
Right.
We were talking about how Martha Ballard's diaries gave us this unique window into the past
Yes.
and how it made us think about our own digital footprints
Absolutely.
and what they might tell future generations about our lives.
Exactly. But let's take that a step further. Imagine that you could actually travel back in time and have a conversation with Martha Ballard.
What would you ask her? What would you want to tell her about our world today? What would you want to learn from her?
That's crazy. I mean, it makes you realize that history isn't just facts and dates in a textbook. It's all these human lives, each with its own unique story.
Exactly.
And those stories, even from centuries ago, can still teach us so much.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, maybe you just take a moment
Yeah.
to reflect on your own story. What have you been through? What are your biggest accomplishments?
Yeah.
What do you believe in?
And even more importantly, what can you learn from the people who came before you?
Yes.
What wisdom can you find in their stories? What can you do to make sure your voice is heard
Uh-huh.
and that your legacy is remembered?
Exactly. I think those are questions worth asking ourselves.
They are. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
I think so too.
It's been such a cool exploration of the frozen river
Absolutely.
and all the different themes that it brings up.
I hope you enjoyed the journey with us. If you have any thoughts or anything you'd like to share,
Leave us a comment.
yes, please leave a comment.
We love hearing from our listeners.
Yes, we do.
And until next time, happy reading.
And for those of you who haven't had a chance to read The Frozen River yet,
Yeah.
we really hope this deep dive has,
Sparked your interest.
made you curious
Yeah.
to check it out. But before we officially wrap things up, let's do like a super quick recap just to like bring everything together.
Yeah, good idea.
We've covered so much.
Yeah. Right.
We started by talking about Lahan's immersive writing style, which, some people loved and some people thought was a little slow.
Right.
And then we got into that fascinating content, which, goes way beyond just the murder mystery.
Right.
It gives you this glimpse into 18th century midwifery
Uh-huh.
through Martha Ballard's real diaries.
Yeah.
And then we discussed how the book tackles these big themes of,
Rape and justice.
the lack of justice for women during that time period.
Right. And of course, we can't forget Martha Ballard herself.
Right.
She's such a complex character.
Yeah.
And so many readers connected with her strength and her defiance.
Yeah.
Even if some found her, a little difficult.
Yeah, she's definitely a strong personality.
She is.
And we also went on this little journey beyond the Frozen River and gave some recommendations
Yes, we did.
for those who are looking for similar themes or time periods.
Yeah, we had The Midwife's Tale.
Which gives you the real story.
Yeah, the nonfiction version.
Then The Alienist, which is, a mystery in a totally different setting.
Right. And then the other, Boleyn Girl.
Tudor England,
Yeah.
always a popular topic.
Always.
And then we had These Is My Words,
Yeah.
which tells the story of pioneer women in the American West.
A really powerful story.
And I think we've given everyone
Yes.
a nice long reading list
We did.
to keep them busy. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought.
Ooh, I like it.
We talked a lot about Martha Ballard's diaries and how they give us this really unique look into the past.
Yeah, and how that made us think about our own digital footprints and
Right.
what they'll say about us.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's take that even further.
Okay.
Imagine, just for a second, that you could go back in time
Mm-hmm.
and actually talk to Martha Ballard.
Wow.
What would you ask her? What would you want to tell her about our world today? And what could you learn from her experiences?
Oh, that's such a good question. It really shows that history is so much more than just facts and dates.
Right.
It's about these real people
Yeah.
with real stories to tell.
And even stories from, hundreds of years ago
Yeah.
can still resonate with us today and teach us valuable lessons. So,
Mhm.
as you go about your day, maybe think about what your own story might reveal to future generations. What challenges have you overcome? What are you most proud of?
Yeah.
What are the things that you believe in? And even more importantly, what can you learn from the people who came before you?
What wisdom can we find in their stories? And how can we make sure our own voices are heard and that our legacies are remembered?
Those are some big questions.
Yeah, they are.
But they're definitely worth thinking about.
For sure. And on that note, I think we've officially reached the end of our deep dive.
I think so too.
It's been such a fascinating journey,
It has.
exploring the frozen river.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
And all the, different topics that it brought up.
For sure.
We hope you enjoyed it too.
And if you have any thoughts or anything you want to share,
Yeah, please.
leave a comment below.
We always love hearing from you.
Yes, we do.
And until next time.
Happy reading.